Hello, Haunted Family. Welcome back. Story 1. Haunted. I hadn't experienced a haunting until my father remarried, and I started living with them. My stepmother had been living in that house for many years, and she has many photos of orbs and vortexes and weird things. But I really didn't think that was so weird. I slept in my stepsister's room, with her on the bottom bunk and me on the top. One night, I was super tired. I went to bed late. I lay down, I closed my eyes, and was about to drift off to sleep when I heard this sound. It sounded like a rubber ball being bounced on the wall at the head of our bed. On the other side of that wall was our brother's room. And seeing as he's a pest, very often, I got upset. I jumped out of bed, headed straight to his room to tell him off. I flung open the door to his room, and there he was, fast asleep. And he is super hard to wake up. I shrugged, said okay, and went back to my room. But that sound continued for most of the night. Finally, I fell asleep. I don't hear it too often now, but it still sometimes happens. There are other things that are creepy, like lights dimming. We don't have any dimmer switches in this house. Others have seen this too, and a lot of our pictures have strange things in them, especially pictures taken in the dining room. And some in the backyard. In fact, we had some pictures developed, and we have 3 ghostly figures hanging around over my husband, my daughter, and my heads. Very weird. Story 2. Just a Ghost. My mother and I packed up and moved to Colorado when I was 15. We had all of our stuff sent ahead of us, so we had no furniture for a few weeks while we finished the last bit of school. My mother made all the final arrangements. A friend of my mother's told us that we could stay at her house until we left for good. I was not too happy with this notion because, for as long as I can remember, this house had gave me the willies. Just because it was one of those old Victorian houses with lots of windows and long dark hallways. This friend's mother had also recently died, and all kinds of strange stuff had started happening in the house. A few months earlier, we were all eating around the kitchen table. A light that was hanging on the wall just over the table switched itself off. I quite audibly heard that switch flip to the off position. No one was near the switch. I should have learned that spirits have a thing for lights right then and there. But things got better. The morning after we moved into this friend's house, I got up at 5 a.m. so I could take a bath and wash my hair and catch my bus at 6:45. I was the only one up. This friend's bathroom was huge and had a huge old Clawfoot tub in there. There was an overhead light with a switch by the door, a lighted panel all the way around the mirror with a switch next to the mirror, and as a nightlight, Jenny kept one of those sets of cheesy Christmas lights set back on the toilet with a switch on the cord. Now, every one of those light switches is at least 3 to 5 feet from each other. I'm in the bathtub, minding my own business, when I find myself in total darkness. Total. Her house sits in about 7 acres. No lights from neighborhoods around. And when the light switches flipped off, I was plunged into total darkness. I don't know if any of you have tried to get out of a deep clawfoot tub in total darkness with shampoo in your hair to try to run around and turn on some lights with a panicky feeling that someone is in the dark with you, but I don't recommend it. Not one bit. Once I had the overhead light back on, I turned on all the other lights. A few mornings later, the same thing happened. I sat in the tub, and after about the count of 10 or so, I was still trying to absorb in my brain what had happened, and that it happened again. When the lights switched back on, I got my butt out of that tub and got dressed so fast. This actually became a morning ritual, the lights turning off on me. Not every morning, but more than a few times every week. Also, during those few weeks that we stayed there, I had an issue with one of her kitchen cabinets. Underneath her sink was those metal cabinets, those old-fashioned type. And one door would swing open with enough force to put a bruise on my shin. It happened more than once, anytime I was trying to make a walk towards the refrigerator or the back door. At least 4 or 5 times during our stay there. These things only seem to happen to me. But here's something that we all would see. She had this old-fashioned lamp on her TV. It doesn't give out much light. This lamp would flicker. But it wasn't bad wiring. She had had that lamp rewired. And she had that wiring in the whole house checked. It was an old house. She was worried about a fire. She remarried and moved out of that house. She still owns it, and she rents it out. None of her tenants have ever mentioned anything about lights flickering or going out. That lamp, she took it with her. She's never had any issues with it in her new house. Story 3. What's going on? About once a month or so, we, my wife and I, hear a sound that sounds like someone walking up the stairs. We're on the stairs leading to our living room. The sounds aren't a simple creaking. They sound heavy, like heavy footfalls, and always fool my wife and I into thinking that one of our children has jumped out of bed and is standing on the staircase. The strong feeling that someone is standing there. You know the feeling when someone's nearby and you can just sense them. Last year I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night, thinking that someone was in the bedroom. Again, that same feeling, that same presence. And then I smelled this overwhelming smell of vanilla. Like I had a bottle of vanilla extract under my nose. It dissipated in less than a minute, and I had a hard time falling back asleep. My wife and I thought hard about the first time we experienced the sounds. The house was built in the mid-80s, and we bought it in the mid-1990s. We're the second owners. About 2 years after we purchased the house, we bought an antique armoire. A beautiful piece. It dates to the early 1900s. I believe that we started hearing those sounds shortly after we made that purchase. Do you think, maybe, the spirit is attached to that piece? We don't care. We're going to keep it, and as long as the spirit stays peaceful, we'll keep it too. Story 4. My dog's story. I brought my dog Lynn in from a walk and down to the basement because we have air conditioning down there and she could cool off a bit. I turned on the AC, waited until she settled on the floor, turned off the lights, and went upstairs to the kitchen. There's stairs leading from the kitchen to the basement. No sooner had I finished walking up the stairs than I heard a loud crash, and Lynn ran up the stairs with her head under the kitchen table. At first, I shrugged it off, thinking she must have bumped something. It fell and scared her. Dogs are like that. I called my dog to come with me down the basement. I was going to put whatever fell at a higher level, but she would only come to the top of the stairs and look down at me. So I went down to investigate. Imagine my surprise when there was nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing on the ground knocked over, nothing missing, nothing out of place. So I'm like, okay, this is really weird. I continued to call Lynn down to the basement, but she wouldn't budge from the top steps. So I turned the AC off. I went upstairs to the kitchen. She followed close behind me. There was no one else home except for my grandmother, who was sitting on the porch the whole time. I have no idea what could have scared my dog like that. She really only runs when she has to. And there was nothing out of place. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to, and drop me a comment if you want to. I love hearing from you. Bye! Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.